Hello, everyone. So, today let's talk about various spiritual topics. What I have first lined up is meditation. So, in regards to how you begin meditation, it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a big thing that you have to like learn various steps from. You can find a pillow, you can find a cushion, you can sit upon it, or you can even sit on a chair. As long as you have your tailbone lined up to the very edge of the cushion, very edge of the chair, and your spine is erect, and you can breathe inward and breathe outward clearly and fully, then and you allow yourself to just sit back. The main thing is that you have to be able to focus your thoughts in a way where they are not so frequent. It's going to take a while for you to get to a point where your thoughts are not continuously like a carousel, one after the other, just thought after thought after thought. But as you slowly lean back into the silence, the thoughts can become less frequent. They can become more suspect to your consciousness because our thoughts and our consciousness are different. Our consciousness is something that is experienced in various degrees and in various frequencies and at various intensities. Thoughts themselves are more like a train. They are your impressions and your memories lined up in response to various stimuli, external stimuli. And you greet the thoughts one after another, but your thoughts are not you. Your consciousness and your soul is you, which exists within the framework of your mind, which produces thoughts. But this also ties into prayer in a way. But meditation and prayer originally was supposed to be meditation, but they are very much connected. But I feel like the mind controls prayer too much rather than consciousness. Consciousness is you experience consciousness. You are consciousness. You are that which perceives things. But the mind, which produces thoughts, when you're praying, you might just take things out of mind. You might take things out of thought, these line of thoughts, this carousel of thoughts, rather than sinking back into experience. If you can create a union between your experience of consciousness and consciousness itself and prayer, and allow prayer to come from consciousness and higher degrees of consciousness, then you will have more successful prayers. Does that make sense, man? Like
Sure.
when we're talking about prayer and consciousness, what is consciousness to you when you think about consciousness? Like what do you feel like it is, and what is mind to you? If you were to put kind of a
Consciousness is
description.
like origin, like kind of like where you you feel like yourself on this plane, but then again, you have to look backwards a little bit and say where's your origin?
Mm-hmm.
And since like we only have a human concept of time,
Mm-hmm.
we don't right. We just so you go backwards like an infinite amount of steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you find?
Mm-hmm.
You find yourself at that point, right?
Yeah. So you feel like you're stepping back from your immediate humanity and stepping back into your deeper humanity?
So it's like a commonality in that we all humans experience is that
Mm.
this commonality where you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, whatever your age is, right?
Mhm.
But if you go back, you look back a certain amount of steps,
Mm.
that's the commonality that we have as humans, right? Just to simplify it.
Mhm.
So that's the origin. We're made from the stars. We're all like our bodies are composed, or the materials of our bodies are composed from the same things that
Stardust.
Yeah.
Yeah, stardust. We're all stardust,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And yeah, because like even when you think of a material like carbon, I mean carbon is like it's in everything.
Yeah.
But so is something more less hard to nail down, like space. Like space is in everything. When we're thinking about atoms, the space between a proton and an electron is quite a bit, and it's enough. And there's enough atoms in everything. There's enough atoms in the universe, enough space between these various atoms, even outside of a singular atom, that if you shrunk down everything in the universe, it could fit into something that's like the size of a golf ball. There's so much space in between things. There's so much distance to traverse.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when we're talking about meditation and prayer and focus,
Yeah.
and the experience of focus, the experience of meditation, and the experience of consciousness. It's almost like there's this space in thought that we have to traverse as well, right? Like there's a space in both between thoughts, but also while you're thinking, as far as like individual thoughts, because we can kind of register thoughts. Because I used to have this Muse headband that was for meditation, but it would be, as long as it had its contacting nodes along my cranium here, um, it could feed into an app, and then the app would basically have this sound function where the more thoughts that I had, the more bird tweets that there would be, or the more the waves and the sound of water would pick up. And then I would know that I need to lower the amount of thoughts I have and lower the frequency of them. But if those nodes can pick it up, and that's just basic thoughts, every thought would be kind of a spike, and it would show, if it was a very sharp spike, it would be, this is a, very, very instant thoughts and very small, very small amount of time. But thoughts could, I actually put the Muse headband on you at one point. And the difference between mine were very spiky. Yours were kind of like more rounded. Like the thoughts were kind of like longer and slower, where yours were more like this and wider ranging, and mine were like. Right. So thoughts can be quantified in lengths of time, and they have a relevancy within our own brains, and they can be picked up. So I feel like there's traversing from one side of this pinnacle, or one side of this curve, to another. There's even a space set in individual thoughts that we can I guess, be more precise and accurate. I'm not really sure how to describe that.
About you want to be how do you want to be more precise and accurate?
But I mean, like your thoughts yourself, you can hone your thoughts. You can
for meditation.
No, just in general. But I mean, meditation as well. But I mean, our thoughts are quantifiable even on a basic level, because if this Muse headband can pick them up, and then I can actually lower my thoughts, and I can lower my thoughts in real, not necessarily lower, but like alter my thoughts in real time, and it can pick them up. And when my thoughts are more calm and less frequent and less high or low, as far as the various emotions within these thoughts, if I can alter those in real time, then it can pick it up on like a basic level. Then there must be some kind of way to kind of affect our thoughts, where we don't have to traverse so much space between them, or we can alter the space between them to have a certain effect in how we think. Does that make sense? Because so we're having an effect on how we think, and trying to basically make our thinking process more effective.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. And I don't know what a more effective thinking process is, but
I mean, at a very basic level, right? You read something, you have to go line by line, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to a concept you're going to have, like, you're unfamiliar with, you're going to have to document what it is, and maybe write a couple subtopics of like what your feelings are. Now, the thing is, when you're looking at religious texts, it's very easy to adopt a
you're gonna have to move closer so that we can pick you up a little bit more.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's when you're looking at religious texts, you gotta be careful. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, do you feel like religious texts might have? Do you feel like they might program you into a certain way of thinking, or how do you feel like that works?
I mean, like, geez, like, I feel like the religious text gets interpreted way out of context, and it's so easy to understand. Like, I don't understand why people have these like really complicated, like, why do we have wars? Like, it's unbelievable. It's because who's financing these wars? Someone's getting paid. Like, I feel like the banksters are like responsible.
And I mean, arms companies. That's why arms companies kind of influenced the United States to thinking that Russia was a bigger threat than they were.
You're so smart.
Yeah, because, like, to make more money off armaments, obviously.
And that's because no one's. If there's no leaders, like, for me, I feel like now that I've kind of understand the society a little bit more, I kind of know the players. Like, you can put an organization together and actually avoid things like war. But when there's no organization, then it's a money machine. We're just going to go to war.
It feels like war is very profitable for a lot of people.
What? Come on! Like, what changed? We're bombing like.
I mean, Not
yeah,
United. Not
US,
United.
okay.
I mean, we've been bombing Yemen and places that have
Israel's bombing currently,
Gaza.
Gaza, right?
Yeah.
Where how much those weapons cost money, right? Cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to sell them and somebody's got to buy them.
That's what I'm saying. Because there was no leadership, this is the default.
And I feel like worldwide there's not proper leadership in general, because I feel like all the leadership has a lot of personal interest and personal investment rather than actually caring about humanity in general.
Oh, I know what you mean. It got too political over there, I think.
Well, I mean, like, think about it. How many leaders can we name that are for compassion and humanity? Like, I mean, like, I can't really think of a single leader in the world right now that's for compassion, humanity, and not just focused on their nation's benefit.
That's been the kind of the arena. It's been like a way for. It's been empty like that. It's like a place value that doesn't exist. It's never existed. It's available, and I think it could change the course of history. But nobody wants to step up to the plate.
Yeah, and I feel like because deep down in our heart of hearts, or deep down within the lotus of our heart, that kind of transdimensional aspect of our heart that is at the very center, that connects us to all dimensions and connects us to source, that connects us to goddess,
truth and reality,
that connects us to. It's almost like that quantum entanglement thing. Anyway, but it connects us to everything.
Yeah.
We all know that children shouldn't die, and people who don't have they don't have nourishment, they don't have housing, that they should have that, and that a child they should have all the rights all the time everywhere, because a child can't be lazy to the extent that you can't expect a child to provide for themselves. So if a child is in that circumstance where they don't have nourishment, where they don't have safety, I think universally human beings are like, yes, that's not okay. That's not how a child should be. But then we come into contact with all these barriers between us and our compassion, or us and affecting our compassion, which affects leadership. And nation is one of them. Religion is one of them. And cultural identity is one of them. And even something called race is one of them. But I don't think race really exists. It's ethnicity, and even ethnicity is a stretch.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just we're not as different,
even as different.
We're not even as different as different breeds of dog. Yeah. And that's why when you see a human baby, when you see a human child, you know that it's a human, and you want it to be okay. And so
hey homie, where are you from? I mean, that's kind of funny. It's like a joke, but why don't, instead of just saying like, what's your race?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, bro, like you live in Alaska, but you're like whatever ethnicity.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so you can just use like whatever. You can make any excuse, like, oh,
yeah,
bro, you live in Alaska. Oh man, that's bad. We ain't gonna represent.
Yeah, you live in Alaska, so we're not gonna. But yeah, so it's like we have these arbitrary borders between different nations. We have the arbitrary borders between quote unquote race. We have these arbitrary borders between religion. And these arbitrary borders, they could be bridged so easily if we didn't have all of these identities, and we didn't want to seek to defend these identities.
It makes it convenient for us.
Yeah, and I feel like we too easily want to defend our identities because we're too uncomfortable or too insecure in our identities. So we want to defend them, because we're not only we're afraid of other identities, but we're afraid of definition. And we're afraid of the limitations of the definition of our identities. So we tend to want to defend what we are uncomfortable or insecure of. And people do all kinds of things for insecure reasons. And it's almost like human beings, the survival, the urge to survive, or the urge to perpetuate oneself, the urge to keep one secure, it extends to metaphysical ideas. It extends to non-corporeal ideas to such an extent that things become very physical very quickly, as far as what you're willing to defend and how you're willing to defend it, which is unfortunate, because I feel like our intelligence at that point is working against us as human beings. I feel like our own intelligence is working against what it's supposed to solve, which is help us survive as a whole.
Sure.
But yeah, do you feel like intelligence can be used incorrectly, and maybe that's why we see a lot of honestly perpetuation of war, like it's used for that specific thing.
I think, yeah. I mean, intelligence, like, exactly what do you mean, like intelligence, like signaling intelligence, or
No, intelligence in general. Like as human beings, we have this innate ability to think about things to more deeply and to have grander concepts than animals, right? That's what I mean by intelligence.
Sure, yeah.
So like we can categorize, we can describe, we can kind of try to understand our experience and communicate it in a way that animals cannot.
Right.
So just intelligence in general, I feel like it can work against us as a species, and it too quickly does when it's motivated by fear,
so
and maybe even survival.
I mean, it just depends on the circumstances, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to have a belief in something, right?
Mhm.
And it's in the mind is very palatable.
Palatable. Yeah.
Can be easily conformed. I mean, that's why I feel responsible, kind of like what's going on in the world. I feel like America kind of just gave up and didn't want to solve the problem when it was so like.
You want to move this way a little bit?
I feel bad because it seems like it's such a very easy.
It's just an easy way to.
It's just like an easy fix.
What do you mean? Do you feel like it's fixable?
War is just the bottom line, default. Nobody cares. So we go to war because nobody cared. That's it.
Or nobody cared about the right things, perhaps?
Go back to look at Russia, Ukraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So stupid. The reason why they went to war is because that
Russia invaded Ukraine.
Huh?
Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do
that. But that area, Ukraine, had people that are native Russians, right? And then you had the Ukrainians.
No, that's what dictators have always said. Oh, that's that when Hitler invaded Czechoslovakia. Oh, there's native-speaking Germans there. Yeah. Obviously, it should be our land. But
they just start. It's like infighting, where they just don't get along.
No. Russia invaded Ukraine. They didn't need to do that. They didn't have to invade.
Russia was already there.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, they were.
They invaded. Ukraine had a border. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Ukraine had a border. Then Russia invaded.
From what I understand, their military was always there.
No.
Their military,
the
military never left.
When the Soviet... No, Russia's military was not there until Russia invaded.
So who was in charge? The rebels?
Ukraine was its own country.
Okay.
It's its own country.
After Russia...
After the Soviet Union collapsed, which means... So Lithuania, Lithuania, I think Lithuania, Ukraine, Slovakia, Kazakhstan, those were all part of the Soviet Union. They were all one thing. Mm-hmm. And then there was other nations that were part of the Soviet Union. When it collapsed, all these countries separated and became their own countries. Yeah. So Lithuania, Estonia, Ukraine, not Czechoslovakia, but Kazakhstan, those areas they became their own countries after the Soviet Union collapsed, and then they were their own countries. And then and Georgia as well was its own country, and Belarus is its own country. So what Putin did was he invaded a part of Georgia, and he just took a part of Georgia. And when Putin just took a part of Georgia, and then he put forward demands, just like he did in Ukraine when he took Crimea, put forward demands. And then Georgia's like, okay, fine, we agree to these demands. You can have that section of our country, and then we will not join NATO. We will not, all these demands. Yeah. And then, but Russia held on to that part of Georgia. But Georgia is its own country. Just like when Russia took Crimea from the Ukrainians, right. it was a part of Ukraine. Yeah. So but they weren't all a part of Russia. They were a part of the Soviet Union. But when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, then they became different nations. Right. So Russia was not in Ukraine. Ukraine was its own thing.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's some text about. Well, I don't know about that. I think Russia, the military was in Ukraine
when
before the fall and until this time.
No, there wasn't. Why did it have to invade if it was already there?
Well, that's what I mean. Well,
it invaded. It invaded.
Who was taking care of? So where was the
Ukraine was its own country. It's like saying that it's like
how was it its own country because it was part of Russia.
So part of the Soviet Union, not Russia.
Part of Soviet Union.
Yes, and so was Estonia. So was Georgia. So was Belarus. So was Kazakhstan.
Yeah, so what happened to the Soviet Union, right?
It collapsed, and they all became their own countries.
Exactly, because
the Soviet Union collapsed.
It was basically a police state, and then so those little small departments.
We're getting off topic, but no, those weren't small departments. So it's a no. Those
are police state.
Completely different countries now. Completely different countries.
Okay.
Completely different countries.
All right.
And it's not excusable with Russia bombing schools. They've bombed over 3,000 schools, killed, and also they've also abducted over 15,000 children. They've bombed 3,000. They're not allowing people to speak Ukrainian in the areas that they still hold, and they're basically brainwashing these children in these camps to not identify with Ukraine. So Ukraine is its own country. They're trying to brainwash these kids. Ukraine is its own country, and that's why they're fighting a war. Ukraine is its own country, and they're fighting so that they don't have to be Russified. They don't have to be a part of Russia anymore. And we've been shown what Russia does to that part of Belarus that they took, that part of Georgia that they took, and that part of Chechnya what they took. We've seen what they've been doing to them, and Ukraine wants to be its own thing, and it is its own thing. But regardless, we're getting off the topic of spirituality, but yeah, so we're getting off the topic of spirituality. But what I found interesting about Ukraine is that the Indo-Europeans, they actually migrated, I think, 10,000 years ago, and then after as well. A lot of them went to India. So we have a lot of India is very goddess worshipping, southern India, and darker southern India, and northern India is very it's more lighter skinned people, but various kinds of dark. But southern India, a lot of goddess worshipping, and I identify with that. I'm a Shakta, and I worship the Divine Mother in the form of Kali. And northern India, it's less goddess worship, but still goddess worship. But I found it interesting that a lot of those Indo-Europeans that kind of migrated to India originally came from the area of Ukraine, and starting around 10,000 years ago. But that's kind of where perhaps that's where we get part of the linguistic root of India. But it's so strange that the southern hemisphere of the entire world, it tends to be more goddess focused. If you divide the southern and northern hemisphere, the southern part of the world is more goddess focused, and the northern part is more God focused, as far as like masculine God kind of focus. So it's strange how that works, and I wonder if it's both tied to agriculture, but also tied to. I'm trying to figure out why that is between the hemispheres, because if we're thinking about the entire Earth in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and they're being more focused on male and then more focused on female on the bottom, and how that works. But it's very interesting, and of course, how we've talked about before, how the gods and goddesses are, I'm very Vedantic and a Shakta, so I many-faced God kind of thing, where all the gods and goddesses are different parts and different pathways to the source. And I think we kind of agree on that. Do we agree on that?
That what different paths are kind of to the same.
Yeah, but I mean, like different various gods and goddesses are kind of like faces for the source in a way.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of entertain that, but then again, I think that. So I kind of just fall in line with what Christ teaches. I mean, I think that you're not going to see it's okay. The information, you're not going to see what you want, right? So you kind of have to like.
Everybody always sees what they want, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with what Christ teaches.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with like what Muhammad teaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
But what does Christ teach? Do you think? Like, what do you?
Like what different? I mean, it's just kind of like how your assignment, right? That's why we have these different religions, and the Quran was created after Christianity, and they excluded some of like the miracles, right? And
they exclude only about. Well, in the Quran, they've excluded the idea that Jesus was a son of God. They've also excluded in the Quran, though. There's actually various things that I kind of feel like should be in the Bible, like Jesus bringing back Jesus being a child and bringing back his friend from death.
Sure.
So his friend basically fell off this roof, and then everybody was accusing Jesus of having pushed him, and then Jesus brought him back to say, and then the kid said, no, he didn't push me, I fell. So he literally like resurrected somebody that wasn't Lazarus.
Yeah.
Before then. And then there's other stories of Jesus that was kept in the Quran that wasn't kept in the Bible. And I find it interesting that in the Quran there was more Jesus stories than was kept in the New King James Version or any version of the Bible, whether it be Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, or Catholic. There's actually more stories of Jesus in the Quran, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But they kept more of those stories in.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And move like over there.
Why?
Because like I feel like the sound is not hitting the microphone as much.
Okay.
You're kind of this way.
Like,
why don't you just go diagonal? Okay, I can't force you to do anything. But yeah, so it just I feel like it's interesting that there's more stories regarding Jesus in the Quran than in the Bible, and also it's interesting that Jesus is still revered as a prophet in the Quran. He has no status in the Jewish text, but the Son of God thing is the main problem that Jewish people and Muslims have with.
That's where I think like you get to this point where like you have these core principles, teachings that we want to create or avoid. Does not matter. Like we need to look past that and just like that, hold it in our heart and focus on the economic status of your place or country. And you're going to need all the resources you get. So that means that even if like your enemy, you hate your enemy, you need to love your enemy. That's what Jesus taught. He said, love your enemy, right? But I just see the message in the Quran is basically, and it's like
you've never read any of the Quran.
I have too, and I think that there's like.
Do you have a copy of the Quran?
No.
Have you ever read any of it?
I'm gonna guess that.
No, yeah.
There's a message that's embedded in the Quran.
You're getting that from other people though. You haven't read any of it.
No, it's reading from the scripture from there.
You've read some of the Quran.
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, I've read the Quran. I've read some of the Quran.
Where? From where? Where'd you read it at? Was it on your phone?
The same thing. You can like how you can read anything from Christianity, bro.
But I mean, like I have a copy of a copy of the Quran. Have you looked up the Quran online or?
Yeah, you can look it up online.
No, I know you can, but have you?
Yes.
You've read some of the Quran.
Yeah. Okay. Some of the Quran, and one of the most recent texts that I've read. It's completely just kind of bewildering, So,
what part did you read that you?
Something is saying that like it's basically labeling man predestining their actions, which is incorrect. I think
there's Christians that believe in predestination. Calvinists, for instance.
Sure, but I mean, it doesn't make any sense because if you want to, for example, if there's a behavior that you don't want to like a sin based on sin is like morality, right? If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. So for the scripture to say that it's predestined that you're to commit a certain amount of this or that sin.
There's a lot of Christians that believe in predestination, like a lot.
I don't think that. I think
Calvinists. Look up Calvinism.
It's incorrect.
Look up Calvinism. They believe in predestination.
What it really means to me, the interpretation that I get is that in the heart, because of the geographic location of these where these teachings are, is that based on their circumstances that they will always seek revenge. That's it.
That doesn't make any sense. So, what part of the Quran did you read that says about revenge?
Because that's what it's basically. That's my interpretation is that the Quran is teaching like whatever your heart in your heart, whatever set in your heart, you always seek revenge. And then they try.
Why do you think that? Who said that? Who told you that?
That's my interpretation.
What part of the Quran did you get that from?
Well, when they talk about that a man is predestined to commit a certain amount of sin, and there's nothing that the man.
That's incorrect. That's it.
But that's what it teaches.
Did you hear that from a Christian?
No, you can read.
Well, where did you hear that? Where did you hear? Where did you hear that from?
You can look it up.
No, but where did you hear that from? You heard it from a Christian.
I heard it from someone preaching.
Was it a Christian?
I looked it up, and you can.
Was it a Christian?
No.
Who was it?
A Muslim.
Is a Muslim talking about revenge?
No, they were talking about an action being predestined. That
there's Calvinists like Christians that believe that.
They're saying that like you're a man, and you're going to commit a certain amount of sin, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what it's teaching.
Well,
which is like
so,
basically in other
but
words,
that, but
you
that's
will
all.
always seek revenge.
Calvinists also say that, which
Okay.
are Christians.
Okay, what do they teach? Show me what their.
Okay,
concepts.
so Calvinism here.
Do we have any followers? Anybody online?
Yeah, I'm sure they have Calvinists but there's more. There's Christians that believe in predestination. So Calvinism, also called Reformed Christianity, is a major branch of Protestantism that follows the theological tradition and forms of Christian practice set down by John Calvin and various other Reformation era theologians. Emphasizes sovereignty in God and the authority of the Bible. But let me look up Calvinism and predestination. Because predestination has always frustrated me, and I don't like it either. But like, there's a lot of Christians and Muslims who believe in predestination, and I hate it. And so it doesn't make any sense. So like, it's basically saying that God created you to go to hell, and if there's people who go to hell, God created you for you to go to hell, which I despise. But
it's a trap.
Calvinists believe that at the beginning of time, God selected a limited number of souls to grant salvation, and there's nothing any individual person can do during their mortal life to alter their eternal fate. So Calvinist doctrine believes in predestination, which is, once again, at its heart is a concept of predestination. Calvinists believe that at the beginning of time, God selected a limited number of souls to grant salvation. There's nothing any individual person can do during their mortal life to alter their eternal fate. So there's Calvinists that believe that, and not all Muslims believe in predestination as well, but there's some Muslims and there's some Christians that believe in predestination.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe it either. No, I don't believe it either. Just understand that there's Muslims and Christians who believe that. There's no Hindus that believe that ever. There's no Hindus anywhere that believe that shit. None.
This is like an edge case in the Quran, which is almost
what?
like.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about there's Christians that believe that. What are you talking about?
Sure. Okay, so
but not all Muslims believe they're of predestination.
So you're talking about like this concept of predestination, which you can find in either like these different sects, right? Like Quran, Christianity, right?
Quran or the Bible. Okay. I mean, they use different examples from the Bible and Quran.
So it's just something taken out of context. Because if you
so in the Quran it's taken out of context as well. So like both.
Just so it's out there, right?
Yeah. So like any idea of predestination can be taken out of context, and I agree with that.
You have if you have a garden, you have all these different concepts that represent concepts and truths and realities.
And Methodists, they're a Protestant sect as well. I keep on saying Protestant, I sound like a Catholic, but they're also a Protestant sect, a Methodist, who believe you're not predestined. It's the method by which you live your life that determines the effect, which I like a lot more than predestination. But Methodist it's a clear rejection of Calvinism. The Methodists, and they're Christian, they reject Calvinism and they reject predestination, and they believe that it's the method by which you live your life. I think that's why they're called Methodists. But yeah, so I don't like the idea of predestination because it also kind of, for Hindus or for Buddhists or people believe in karma, it's almost like there's some force that's giving you all this bad karma that you didn't even accumulate, and you just have to be in a hellish realm forever. So it's even more preposterous for Hindus and Buddhists, to be honest. Because I mean, like, everybody has to.
So what's the origin of this predestination? It's from both,
there's different paths and different religions that have sects that believe in predestination, but there's plenty of Christians. It's not just Calvinists, but there's plenty of Christians that believe in predestination, and plenty of Muslims as well.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I particularly like.
I don't know.
Islam or predestination.
Well, we were looking at different things like the land of milk and honey and things like that. How you can interpret that, what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, but and going back to but like, if we were going to talk about hell.
Yeah.
I mean, like, do you feel like somebody goes to hell forever? Because, I mean, we've talked about this before, and we've kind of gone back and forth on this.
It's the same thing as, like, when's Jesus coming back?
No, I mean, like...
When's the end times? When's the world going to end?
No, like, theologically, like,
I mean,
like,
are we
morally.
Gonna escape this world, like, when the sun becomes a red dwarf and engulfs, like, Mars, Jupiter, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way the Earth can exist anymore because the mass of the sun is expanded.
Mhm.
What's I mean, how do you answer that? Well, we don't know.
I don't think that
You think
somebody
we're gonna
goes to
make it
hell
that far?
forever.
You think,
I don't think somebody goes to hell forever. That doesn't make any sense. So I think that you basically
it's a possibility.
hellish realms. God would have to be extremely evil to send somebody to hell forever,
But
because
you have to look at it as a possibility, right?
anything is possible.
Yeah.
It's possible that there is no God, there's no afterlife, and that there is no souls. It's possible. That's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's true, but yeah, I mean, like, I think that a godlike being, the source, or whatever you want to call it, to send somebody to hell forever would be honestly just torture. Because I mean, there's only a certain amount of pain and anguish that you can cause as an individual in order to pay that much back.
So, as there are different types of fires, there's fires that burn, there's fires that engulf, there's fires that there's different kind of fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we don't know if you just die and are extinguished, which would be terrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a wild card. When we die, you just might just not exist anymore, which is sad because that's your reality. You believed in whatever you believed, but maybe if you believed in the Holy Spirit and God, maybe that's your reality. You know, you wake up with
that. So you're introducing the options of either going to heaven or being extinguished or going to hell.
Well,
I mean, like, does it? So, do you feel like somebody might go to hell for a certain amount of time?
My default answer is whatever the Bible says. That's probably 99.9999% correct. Whatever it says.
Okay.
Now you can.
But like, there's different interpretations of the Bible, though.
We don't know because we don't know the ancient scriptures. So we have the King James version or the Jefferson.
No. Yeah. Well, we don't know, but I mean, like, does it make sense in your head for somebody to go to hell forever? Like, we don't know anything, but
yes, that
why?
makes sense.
Why? What if there's only a certain amount of pain that somebody can cause?
I understand, but it makes sense in the terms of like what's important now. So if we look at what is important now as being like relative to being human right this minute. Mm-hmm. Do you value life? How much do you value life? Do you think it's important? Is it a gift? How valuable is your entitlement to life right now? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you look at it, it's like, it's no big deal if I die okay. But if you think that it's important that nobody hurts you, nobody can harm you, and you value your peace and tranquility, then the concept of hell makes sense because
but eternal hell.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain to you.
Yeah.
If that is fact, right, and we can verify it somehow, and it makes sense because then you know what, there wouldn't be any wars, there wouldn't be any harm.
How? There's wars and harm now.
Yeah, because
if hell's eternal, it's happening. There's wars now.
They don't know if they're going to go to hell for whatever they're doing. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so you believe everybody believed they would go to hell, then everything would be peaceful?
I believe that if I commit murder, that I'm going to hell.
Forever?
Why? Yeah.
Okay,
I believe that. And that makes sense because that's the perfect justice.
But then think about it. Like, is war murder? Like, how many?
I'm telling you, if you could verify that hell was forever somehow, you can't do it, right?
But
if you were to verify it, there would not be any wars. Because who the hell would go?
Because there'd be torturing in hell forever.
I don't know, but
you said it's torture.
Sure, so you'd be tortured by your own sin. So whatever your sin was in there.
But forever? You're saying sin is limitless. Sin is eternal. So if hell is eternal, then isn't it just like God? So it's just as eternal as God. So it's like another God. Is hell another God since it's eternal?
I'm looking at it from a point of avoidance, that I want to avoid the possibility of going to this place forever, right? Mm-hmm. That's the maximum limit. Maybe it's less. Maybe it's like you said. Maybe it's just based on
how much pain you cause.
Yeah, how much pain you cause, which would lighten the sentence, right? So basically, give you more justification. Now, that's what I'm trying to explain to you.
What?
How important is your moment in time right now? If you value it as the most, a very high, that you deserve, you're entitled to be here now. It makes sense for hell to be eternal, because why? It eliminates the possibility of anybody taking that moment away from you.
Okay, but there's plenty of people that believe hell is eternal, but have done have done terrible things. Like Vlad the Impaler believed that hell was eternal, and he impaled tens of thousands of
Yeah.
people.
King David was supposed to be like a very righteous man in the Bible, but he was an adulterer, you know. But he was.
Wait, do you think adulterers go to hell forever?
That's what it says, but we don't know. Like,
I think it's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense.
All right, hold on a second.
It doesn't make any sense.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
What did in the Bible? If you look at Scripture, it says the day. Do you think that it says the day that you eat of the fruit, you will die, right? But they didn't die. Something else happened. So we don't know what card God has. We just have to look at the possibilities. The worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is I'm a sinner, right? I cannot ever escape this gravity of sin. Like I'm always going to stumble. Like for example, I can be holy for 5 years, 10 years, and then I just have a thought about a beautiful woman, and I'm not married to her. I go
and you go to hell forever. So like, there's no in between. It's strange. So like, This is what is really strange. There's no like in between ground. So like, either you go to hell or go to heaven. There's no in between. So it feels
you're automatically going to hell unless you are redeemed.
Why?
Because that's the way it
No,
works.
It's not. No, it isn't.
Yeah, and according to Christianity.
No, it's not. Not all Christians believe that.
What do they believe?
So there are actually some Universalist Christians who don't believe you go to hell forever. So there's some Christians who do believe you go to hell forever. Most do, but it's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm saying if there isn't an eternal hell, then that just gives you justification to do what you want.
No, you still get punished.
Yeah.
But I mean, you only get punished for the amount of pain that you cause. The amount of pain that you cause. So for instance, it's almost like if you steal a candy bar and then you get sent to prison forever. That makes no sense.
I don't know.
So like you get a life sentence for stealing a candy bar, or you go free. It doesn't have to be either or. There has to be some middle ground.
So I don't know. I think that
it doesn't make any sense.
I feel like that God has the option to decide who He wants to be with, because was He a prophet? Was God here?
God isn't a child. He's not hateful. He's not hateful or vindictive.
You can't answer step 20. You have to look at steps 1, 2, and 3. We're at step 20 and trying to answer step 20, but we haven't even looked at 1, 2, and 3 to figure out what.
I have. What are you talking about?
I know, but whoever's online, they're not going to know what we know, so we have to explain to them.
I'm not sure you know what you think. So we have to.
I'm not saying that hell is real or hell.
No, I believe it. I believe it's real, but I just think
I just don't think that says that's kind of like the where I'm leaning more towards.
Okay, so
unless you can prove
in the Bible, it only talks about hell being fire in 3 different instances, and it doesn't even necessarily mean that it's eternal. There's a whole lot of like drawing conclusions.
It might not be hell. It just might be like God. If God is a loving God, right? He has to give you what you want. If you want to be separate from God, then that's what you get.
Mm-hmm.
But what is that? Nobody knows.
But there's got to be there's no.
You want to be separate from God?
There's no.
It's either or.
There's no. Yeah. But here's the thing.
How do you know
you learn. So if God is you don't know either. Nobody does. But here's the thing. There has to be a process by which, if God is truly a loving God and cares about His children, and we're all God's children, there has to be a process by which you eventually return to God. Okay. There has to be a process, and He wouldn't torture His children forever. That is because, like, what would that accomplish? That wouldn't accomplish anything. Okay. Because I mean, like, just because, for instance, so if you steal a candy bar, you're like, okay, I go to jail for 3 years. You still probably wouldn't steal that candy bar. It wouldn't be a motivate. Plus, think of all the Christians who've done terrible things that believe hell is eternal. Think of all those priests who have molested children, who still believe in eternal hell. So if they believe in that, and they still did the bad thing. Okay, they still did those bad things.
Okay, so if they gambled, you understand?
Okay, well then it's not a deterrent.
So that's what I'm saying.
If people are willing to gamble, it's not a deterrent.
I'm not telling you that hell is eternal or it's not. I don't know.
It's not, but I don't know either. I don't know either.
But
nobody knows.
It's going to be a gamble because if
everything's a gamble. We don't even know if God exists.
If everything's a gamble. If it's eternal, or if it's for 10 years, or 100 years, or 1,000 years, right? Like you said, if it's based on, I don't want to experience that regardless. Mm-hmm. But the worst case scenario is it's eternal. Like God doesn't play games. I think that He doesn't look. I think that He's like, you're in or you're out. If you're out, it's separation from God, and it could be this internal hell, which is just basically You're going to be reminded of your sin.
So how do you live your life differently? No, thinking that hell is eternal. How do you live your life differently? What do you do to not go to hell eternally?
You would have to accept, like, well, it depends on your religion. If you
No. What do you do specifically?
For me?
Yeah. What do you do to make sure you don't go to hell eternally?
The first thing that I do is that now.
How often do you pray?
I'm going to tell you based on what a teacher taught me, not my personal beliefs.
No. It doesn't matter about your beliefs. What do you do to not go to this eternal hell?
I'm trying to tell you.
What do you do? What do you do?
I don't know. I have to.
No. What do you do every day? So what do you do to every day to not go to hell?
Okay. So the decision, the answers to that is someone that has the teaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
A pastor, for example, for me.
Mm-hmm.
So talked to me and said, "Your
pastor.
first, yeah, pastor."
Well, what kind of church was it?
The Church of God.
Okay.
The World Society, the World Mission.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead though.
I'm pretty sure you can find it, right?
Yeah. It's easy to find.
Let me. So, anyways, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter, like if it's Baptism, Methodist, whatever church, because no church is perfect, right? But the first step is to cleanse yourself, to admit that you are a sinner. And sin is based on morality, right?
But I mean, do you sin 100% of the time? Wouldn't it be better to? Why do you identify with the sin? Why identify with the sin?
I mean, I feel like.
Wouldn't you identify with your soul instead?
I feel like looking at women, like, going out.
So you identify with doing that? You call yourself? You identify with the sin?
I think that there's someone out there that can identify with, like, maybe they have an opportunity to go, on a date with one girl tonight and then another girl tomorrow night, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that you got to look at that in morality. Like, is that the way the body? It seems like the body.
But why would you identify with the worst part of yourself?
Pardon me?
Why would you identify with the worst thing that you've ever done? Why don't you identify with the best part of yourself? Why not say I'm a soul rather than I'm a sinner? You're identifying
because
with.
You want to purify. You want to purify your life.
But you're identifying yourself as something that is wrong. Why would you identify with the wronghood, the falsehood?
It's like I said, I'm looking at the tradition of what others kind of voted on, like a consensus of what everyone in the past at a certain time kind of said. You know what? This is the consensus. This is what we.
Yeah, but the past is the past, and people change.
Obviously, the heart is selfish, and the heart wants to basically, like, for example,
why would you identify with your selfishness?
One thing, but like instead of like focusing on materialistic things, we can look at it in morality. Like the heart, as a man, wants to be selfish and wants to, like, be with multiple women, for example, right?
So you're identifying with the worst part of yourself.
No, I'm just saying.
You identify with.
I can say, like, the heart is deceitful, that it wants to lie. It wants to tell you that you need things, you need money,
okay,
you need women, you need status, you need power, right?
No, I don't think the heart tells you that.
That's what it does, for sure.
No, I think the heart. I think deep within the heart, I think all human beings are actually pretty pure. I think that all the temporary things, the temporary status.
In 1 second.
I believe that human beings deep down are pure.
You can look at like the news tomorrow morning. You can tell you right now that that's not true.
Deep down, we are pure. It's just that we choose the temporary satisfactions. We choose the temporariness.
We are pure and we're misguided. So how do you get in line?
So you identify with the misguidedness?
No.
Yeah, you can identify as a sinner, then you identify with being misguided. It's basically, instead of calling yourself a Christian, you're calling yourself a follower of sin. So, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to identify with the sin.
No, I mean, I don't understand what where we're going with this. You believe in sin or you don't believe in sin? You think that there's...
No, I don't have to. So it's basically like me if I drink alcohol and I drink alcohol a lot. Okay. Just saying, instead of my name is Hunter, instead of saying I'm a soul, then I'm an alcoholic, and that's all that I am.
Others in the past have already looked at this avenue. Other people that are righteous, that have claimed to be righteous.
Claimed, yeah.
Okay. They have said that this is like a problem, a morality issue. When you're drunk, you cannot focus, you cannot do things, you cannot contribute, you cannot help.
And what are we doing? Drinking?
No.
Yes, that's what we're doing.
It's Saturday, Hunter. Going back to a drunkard. A drunkard is someone who's on a day-to-day basis.
Right? Okay, just sins constantly then. Something like a sinner. Yeah. So, but you're identifying as a sinner. So you're identifying as a drunkard. No, I'm not. You're identifying as a sinner, right? So you're identified as a drunkard.
No.
So don't identify with your sin.
I'm telling you that.
So don't identify with your sin. Don't identify as a sinner.
You have to like
But then you're identified as a drunkard.
What are you talking about, bro?
That's a sin, right? Being a drunkard. But you're identifying with the sin, so you're identifying as a drunkard.
I'm not.
So you're calling yourself a sinner, right? And you're calling yourself a sinner, right? Are you calling yourself?
Have I sinned?
I'm asking you. Are you calling your do you say you're a sinner? What sin are you identifying with? What sin are you identifying with?
Everyone is a sinner.
How?
At any time.
How is everyone a sinner?
Because
a little baby?
A
little baby's a sinner?
About that, Hunter. I don't know where we're going with this.
Anyway, but
so it's based on like what's written, the word, whatever word scripture that is written, right? It's based on your ancestors and tradition, right? So depending on what religion you are, there's some code of conduct, morality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you drink on a day-to-day basis and you're drunk and you can't go to work,
okay, so
you're a drunkard. But if you're hanging out with your friend on a Saturday night,
let's go back to the main question.
Okay.
So you believe in eternal hell, correct?
No.
Okay.
It's not what I said.
No. Okay.
It's not whether I believe or not. It's what has been written. And
people argue about what has been written.
Okay, so if it's written and there's some kind of possibility that it's true, why gamble? Why take a chance? It's so easy just to avoid it. It's like why try to step on the play with fire? You know, why do you want to play with fire? I don't get it.
Okay, so what do you do in your day-to-day life to make sure that you don't go to hell?
Read scripture.
You read scripture every day.
Repent from your if you make a mistake.
No. Do you read scripture every day?
No, I do not.
How often do you read scripture?
Whenever I get a chance.
No, how often?
I mean, it could be every day. It just depends. I don't know.
How many?
I don't have a set schedule. Like right. You know,
how many times have you read the Bible this week?
I don't know.
You haven't read it all, have you?
Yeah, I did. I have. I don't have it
you're
looking for an exact answer.
Besides reading the Bible,
whenever I have a question, whenever there's a problem, I have to address. Like if I have a question in spirituality, right? I will look it up and look at the Bible and see what the answer is.
Excellent. What do you?
So I can modify my behavior.
So what do you do that are virtues on a day-to-day basis to make sure you don't go to hell if you believe in it? You believe in hell, right? So what do you do?
I don't focus it on like that. I have a relationship with God that I know that.
Do you pray every day?
Yes.
How do you pray every day?
I mean, I just wake up in the morning and I thank God, a little prayer for the day.
Do you put your hands together or what do you do?
Yeah. I mean, I just sit like this, kind of just like.
So you wake up and you sit.
I usually wake up and I'll just kind of sit and just say, thank you, Lord, for this day.
Do you want to show the camera what you're doing?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you sit like this when you wake up.
Yeah.
You say, thank you for this day. Or what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of fold my hands, nod my head low.
I'm just trying to figure out what your spiritual practices are. So you wait.
I don't have like.
So you wake up and you pray.
Yeah. I don't get on my hands and I don't get on my knees because I have a bad knee surgery.
Excellent.
So I will just get in a comfortable position, and if I can face something positive, like if I know where I'm at, I will put my body towards something positive, align it with something, whatever I can. If it's
give me an example.
I mean, I will look for positive. If I can see the sun out of the window, I kind of look at the sun and just kind of look that direction. Or if I'm somewhere where in my car, right, I will park my car in a peaceful alignment with the maybe it's under a tree or maybe I will try to find something to align myself with God.
Okay, so you wake up and pray.
Yeah.
And
I mean, sometimes, not all the time. It's just, I mean, most of the time I wake up and I give thanks, a little thanks. And then for meals, I always kind of pray. I pray for.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else do you do to make sure you're not going to hell?
I mean, I don't think of it like that. I don't think that I'm going to hell. I don't think anybody's going to hell.
Oh, good. Me either.
Yeah, but do I think that it's possible that I can go to hell for eternity?
Definitely possible.
Yeah,
and if you think it's a possibility, that's why I'm asking. What do you do personally?
That's why I want to try to avoid it and try to modify my life. So
Excellent.
That I can avoid it. Yeah.
Excellent. How do you modify your life?
Well, the first thing I used to have a problem with was just being unstable. And that being unstable could be excessive addictions to it could be anything. You can have an addiction to alcohol, which is for example, it could be something simple like smoking. Smoking will not allow you to achieve your highest potential, and you need to be at the highest potential so you can glorify. To me, my personal opinion is so you can give glory to God. That's all. If you're tired
how do we
and you're out of breath and you're like,
how do we send glory to God though?
By acknowledging Him and by like kind of trying to understand, history and.
Okay, so how do we understand it? Do we read the Bible?
I mean,
or
it's a start. Yeah, it's a start.
So how do we?
I don't want to be the person like I know most preachers, most pastors. Like if you look at Christian teachers, anything, right? They're really adamant about being a member of their specific church and their ideologies. But to me, it's like kind of your heart will know what's the truth, right? Mm-hmm. I believe that the heart, when it's light as a feather, then you're on the right path. When you have a burdensome, like or when your heart is heavy, you're on the wrong path.
Okay. So your heart isn't heavy at all?
Yeah. Have you ever had a heartache? Like, have you ever been like somewhere and you just like had anxiety because you were like maybe confused or perplexed about something, like you're like worried, concerned, and you felt like your heart tight right here. It's like you could feel.
Yeah, what I do is so there's some things that I do. So I will, if I'm standing or sitting, either way, I will repeat Babaji, Babaji, Babaji in my head. Sometimes I'll go Om Babaji, Om Babaji, Om Babaji, but usually it's just Babaji. I'll repeat Babaji in my head again and again and again, and it's a little blessing of peace and an attunement with the Maha Avatar of this planet, which is Babaji, which is still an avatar on this planet who will be here until the planet's end. So I attune to the light of Babaji, or I will gaze into my third eye. And I don't necessarily need to close my eyes, but I'll gaze into my third eye and focus on the light, the Divine Mother. Like I can do it right now without closing my eyes. And I look into my third eye, and my eyes become unfocused. But I gaze into the light that she's sending down towards all things, but also the vision that she's given me that I can focus on to do this practice. And I will identify with that light and allow that light to wash over me and try to become one with that light. I don't need to close my eyes, and I can do it just like this. Focus on that. I will also, if I feel like I'm not attuned with life in general or other life forms or other human beings, I will, when I'm walking, I'll try to straighten my spine and breathe deeply so my body functions correctly and I get oxygenation to my brain so that the whole mechanism is working well. And then I will try to do everything very deliberately. Whatever I'm doing, I'll do it very deliberately and try to be very conscious of what I'm doing so that I have contact with the life around me and with people around me. Okay. And if I'm very depressed, that Babaji mantra will work fairly well. It doesn't work all the time. It works fairly well. If I'm very depressed, but I'll try to focus less on the past, and I'll try to focus less on what I don't have and what I do have at my disposal in my life in front of me and my life. As far as my thinking goes, I try to focus on what I do have and what I can do with what I have, rather than focusing on what I don't have and what I desire to have, what I have in my hands.
Whatever you project out in the universe, you usually get back.
Yeah. But it's always, and I wish I should meditate more. On the best days, I meditate every day, 12 minutes a day, but I should meditate more, and I do mantras to Kali, Ma Kali mantra, Om Kling Kali Ke Namaha, Om Kling Kali Ke Namaha, Om Kling Kali Ke Namaha. And you don't have to say the Om at every time. So basically it's Om Kling Kali Ke Namaha, Om Kling Kali Ke Namaha, Om Kling Kali Ke Namaha. And then at the very end you say Om. But that's a manifestation of the Divine Mother's kind of like love and power, and it's supposed to verbally manifest that in your reality, so that you have that contact with the Divine Mother. Okay. But that is a mantra that on the best days when I do meditate, I do that mantra, which is that bead. For every bead, it's about basically it's 50. It's got to be 50. Yeah, 54. There's 54 beads. I do 54 recitations of that, and then I'll meditate, and then I'll do 54 more recitations of that mantra. And before that, I'll offer some ghee and some incense to the Divine Mother, and some rose water and some Ganga Jal, which is like river water from the river Ganga, on both Ma Kali and Shiva. and then I'll do that. But that's my most spiritual days is when I do my puja, the offerings, when I do the meditation, when I do the mantra, and
So you're very devoted to your like religion.
I'm very devoted to God.
Yeah.
And the highest reality that and I don't do this those are the best days. And I do that at least a few times a week. But sometimes I fall and sometimes I drink and then I don't meditate.
That's very interesting.
But I want to connect, I want to feel, and I want to love the ultimate reality, which is in my understanding, Ma Kali, she is the ultimate reality. She is source. She is Godhead. So I want to connect to her as much as possible, and I want to make it a practice. I want to do things. I want to actually make an effort, and I don't want to just ask for things. I want to actually make connection.
Right.
So that's on my best days is when the days of the week when I do the mantra, when I do the meditation, and when I do the puja, those are my best days.
Is it because you feel like you're like in a rhythm? It's like
I feel the connection. I feel the connection to God, and that's what I do to do it. But yeah, the more that you do these spiritual practices, and I've been doing spiritual practice for a while, but the more that you do them, the more you actually you're not afraid anymore, and there's not that hesitation. There's not that pain of thinking of worrying about death or worrying about hell, because you feel that connection. There's not so much of a mystery because you feel that connection, and that connection is like an anchor that does not let you fall. You feel it. It's not a question anymore. You feel it.
Okay.
So it's remarkable how much fear disappears when you have
that's great. Yeah,
spiritual
I can't
practices.
Maybe I need to meditate more, but no, I connect.
I can definitely help you.
I can't get past the fact that we're like such a miserable planet and people are miserable.
You'll feel that if you don't have spiritual practices. Yeah. Like you feel more fear. You feel more identified with material. Material is very temporary, and the material passes. Material dies, and if we don't have spiritual practices, then we're identified with what passes and what dies.
Yeah.
So fear is natural. But that's why it's necessary to have spiritual practice, because ultimately all the money we'll make in this life, whatever health we have, whatever security, it's going to be gone like that. Like we can't take it with us. We can't take any money with us.
Right.
We can't take any health with us. Can't take anything with us.
If you feel so strongly and passionate about what you're saying, then why is there such a discord in society? Why are we having wars? Why can't there be peace in the Middle East? I mean, like it's just so simple. If they're getting all this money, and
if all of humanity meditated 2 minutes a day, the world would be such a peaceful place.
Okay,
but people don't believe.
How are you gonna?
How are you
gonna?
No, I can't force it on anybody. People have to do it themselves.
You're giving
nobody can force it on anybody else, and that's the sad thing. Is because nobody wants to do the spiritual work. They rather focus on what they can gain, own, and take in the external world, rather than doing the inner work.
Right.
Because it's easier to focus on money. It's easier to focus on women. It's easier to focus on territory, identity. My nation against your nation. I'm going to kill that guy so I have more. It's easier to focus on that than actually just work on yourself. It's harder to work on yourself,
right?
And that's why most people don't do it. Unfortunately. But yeah,
there's no form of cooperation between like things when you need it the most. But yeah, like I said, I don't know what's the discord in society that
people are scared. People are fearful of.
Scared of what? It's so
people
simple.
Are afraid of each other.
Just help each other.
People are afraid of each other
and cooperate.
Yeah, people are afraid of each other because so sometimes you're up against a neighbor that you're afraid of, or sometimes you have a belief that puts you against somebody else. Whether you're a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, there might be somebody else that your belief sets you against. And from the moment you're a little kid, there's a lot of people telling them that, hey, that person over there is bad, they're evil, they're going to get you. And if somebody hears that from a very small child, all the way until they're a teenager, then into adult, and then other members of the community talk about other people trying to get you and who the evil people are, or Satan getting you or something, then if you hear that all the time, you're going to become a person who attacks that thing that you've been told is a threat. And that is true universally. that is hatred is taught. Threat of a different religion, a different spirituality, or some kind of evil force, that is taught. And people teach hatred.
Right.
People teach fear.
Well, I mean,
And then that's why people are
there's-
hateful and fearful.
I understand. Hatred is like something against another group or individual, but
Yes.
Evil is something else. Like,
Well,
you
no,
can
people
teach
are
evil,
told.
it has nothing to do with somebody else. Evil is
Yeah.
evil.
No. Well, no. But different people have different definitions of evil. So basically, I'll give you an example. So,
Thou shalt not kill. That has nothing to do with like society. Where are you from?
but if somebody tells you,
That's like,
if somebody tells you that somebody is an evil killer,
yeah,
wouldn't you think that they're evil and want to kill them? So saying that person over there is an evil killer,
well,
then they're evil.
No, that's
somebody is telling you.
That's two different things.
Somebody is telling
You're
you.
jumping the gun. Evil is evil, and then
Yes.
if somebody like, okay, a gun is not evil,
Mm.
it's because a gun can't kill anyone.
Mhm.
So you're saying like we should ban guns because
How does that do with guns? What are you talking about? No, I'm telling you, somebody is telling somebody else that something else is evil.
Yeah.
So little kids are taught by their parents. For instance, those Jews over there, those Christians over there, those Muslims over there are evil.
I know.
And they're going to get you.
Yeah.
And then they end up deciding, I'm going to get them first.
Right.
That's been
But
true
there's two
for
different
all
things,
history.
though. Like evil, killing someone is evil. Right?
Correct. No. I'm not saying that this evil is real. I'm saying that people are telling their kids that something is evil when it's not. And they're like, oh, it's evil? I'm going to get rid of it. So there's no more evil. And that's what people have been doing and it doesn't even necessarily have to do with religion. So like if you're a really redneck family on the Texas border and a father might tell his son, hey, those Mexicans over there, they're going to come over and take our property. And they're all drug dealers. They're all gangbangers. And they're coming over the border. Right. If you see one of them, you got to shoot them because they're evil. Yeah. That's how death works. That's how evil. That's how pain works. That's how war works.
It's convenient to apply your own philosophy of what is what. But
what do you mean? Why do you think war happens?
War happens because it's a combination of time and place and like different elitists.
Mm-hmm. How do they get people to kill each other?
Because it's easier so it's always when two groups fight each other, they can't get along. The next thing is that it just becomes a war. Right.
And do you think each side thinks that the other is evil?
Yeah.
Yep.
They do.
Because they've been told that.
Yeah, because you grow up and the boundaries are so tight. That's what
their parents tell them that the people over there are evil.
Obsessed. It's like, okay, it's just like people that get obsessed playing like the game, like, okay, I like, for example, some people believe that they're vampires, right? But they don't have, they're fucking not bats or anything like that. But they believe like they're actual like this entity, and they need to harvest blood, and they're gonna have immortality. They believe that. They're so like tied into the character. Then the next step, it just becomes a fantasy that then they need to like actually kill somebody, right? You know what I mean? It just goes to the next level. They're just so into the character. And it's the same thing with like what's going on now in Israel and Gaza, that they're just so into the character of the game. It's a video game for them. You know, they can't snap out of it.
But don't you think that they both think each other is evil? Like a lot of Israelis,
they hate each other.
A lot of Israelis think the Palestinians are evil, and the Palestinians think the Israelis are evil.
They hate each other because like they believe they don't have anything else. They don't have an economic forum or anything like to their mind is just super hyper focused on this.
And Gaza's kind of a ghetto, ironically, which is crazy because it's walled off, and you can't go freely in and out of Gaza for 17 years. Like they literally can't even leave the Gaza Strip. Like there's a huge wall around it.
What happened over there is wrong, and the moral of the story is we allowed it. We should be ashamed of ourselves. The whole world, like if you're American, Russian, China, you should be embarrassed at what's going on, the bombings over there in Israel, which is really sad as American because we've given Israel all this money to do that.
The back and forth pain and devastation, but yeah, no, it all ties into different sides thinking each other is evil, and then.
But if you think that each other's evil,
yes,
it's been okay.
Yes, they think each other's evil.
They keep fighting.
they think each
And
other's
they've
evil.
been fighting. I mean, like they just go back some.
How do you think that's maintained though? They think each other's evil. They're not just like, I mean, they're okay over there, but I kind of want more land, so screw them. They don't.
I think
they think each other's
I think that Palestine feels like Israel is taking their land. Israel hates Palestine because
they feel like they're
trying to
aggressive.
kill them. Oh, yeah, they're aggressive, right? Their religion is.
So, but they think each other is evil. Ultimately.
Yeah. But it's based on a lie. The whole system is based on a lie.
Yes.
So, yeah. Yes. Right, and it was done on purpose, I think, as a stumbling block for that region, to show the world that that these basically like. Parents, if you have parents that are alcoholics, what the fuck is going to happen to the kids? The kids, you know what I mean?
They're going to see the example.
Right. And let's say your neighbors, right? We all live on the block, and you know these people next door are alcoholics, but you don't do anything, right? You're just like, that's not my business, so I'm not going to get involved. And that's the problem. And the mentality of the world is, it's not our problem, we won't get involved.
Yeah.
We all need to be aware of what's going on in our neighbor, in the neighborhood.
For sure, because all of humanity is one.
Yeah, and we can't allow like terrorist groups to like.
At the same time, should we kill children to get rid of them? Like it's such a hard thing because you can't allow people who do terrible things to exist. But at the same time, are you willing to do terrible things in order to get rid of them? Like it's
that's wrong. That's the reason why that's the stumbling block of Israel is that they attacked the civilians to try to get to the 2-3 terrorists, right? So the 500 civilians to get to whatever terrorists underground. I mean, it's wrong. But they want to eradicate Hamas, and so if it involves children, then that's what they're willing to do.
Yeah,
they don't want to whatever happened to them on October 7th. They don't want it to happen again. So they're willing to say
they're willing to do more terrorist acts and
more gruesome brutality. Bomb hospitals, whatever it is to do it, which is just so weird how this all happened. Like I saw it from a time perspective outside of time. Like I can see the timeline, and I'm like looking at it. I'm like, holy, nobody cared. Nobody did anything.
And it's a lot of people will say, I'm not saying that I believe this, but that we're coming from a privileged perspective to where we're not on the ground, we're not getting those Hamas rockets, and we're not getting the Israeli bombs. So it's easy for us to, sit in our armchairs and say that, what's happening, that both sides are equal. But, if a lot of people say, if you're on the ground, then it's very obvious who's the bad guy. And then both think that each other is a bad guy. And I think that's how war and the idea of evil operates, is that if two sides think that each other is evil, they're willing to destroy each other. And it happens again and again and again. And for instance, like the Nazis thought that the Jewish people in Germany were so evil and they were in charge of all these banks and that they deserved to have their property seized so that they don't seize anybody else's property. And it's a cycle, and that people are messed up by the scriptures. Yeah. And it happens again and again and again. But I think that maybe we can kind of end on some notes.
I just want to tell you one thing, that you're so hardcore. Like I don't think people can understand. Interpret scripture. For example, I'll give you one simple one, right? There's many that I know that I've kind of interpreted on my own, but if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. Okay, that's the old one, right? Mm. But some people believe that's the word of God, that it existed from the beginning of time. That phrase. Well, I mean, figuratively, when you say rod, first thing I think of is a pen. Mm-hmm. Okay. Doesn't mean that you whip your child or hurt your child. It just means that if you don't discipline your child with knowledge, then you spoil him. He becomes a fool. But see, but it's it's convenient for us to say, oh, well, you need to beat the shit out of your kid for him to listen. And that's how it's interpreted, because God, that's how God has given you the freedom to make those choices on your own. Mm-hmm.
And then misinterpretations cause all kinds of pains and back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I feel like but it's almost like people want to they have a hammer, they can build a house. Mm-hmm. Instead of building a house, they decide to bash somebody's head in. It's like we can use any kind of spiritual text ever in a positive light, and use it to build up communities that are
So
spiritually strong or emotionally
yeah,
strong.
and I just want to add some color to, like, you know how in the Bible some of the they were stoned to death, right? How did that, what it was supposed to be, actually, instead of the actual physical stoning, it was supposed to be like getting together and actually, like, since everybody
Verbally talking.
yeah, like communicating and bringing that person up, lifting them up to, so we're all at the same level. So that person was being stoned for like whatever action they did. For example, they got stoned like if you cheated like on your husband, right? Like a woman, she would get stoned, right, if she cheated on her husband. So that action of like harming someone, that's not what God wanted. He probably wanted that person to be rehabilitated.
Yeah, it could be like a verbal admonishment rather than a physical.
Yeah.
So like I feel like at future days and in increasing days, um, we can take the good parts of all kinds of spiritual texts and be like, okay, maybe we can interpret stoning as just a verbal admonishment rather than
Sure.
than like a physical thing. So there's a way to use any kind of spiritual text or any kind of religion in a positive way. I think that it's based on the human's desire and based on their relinquishing of fear and allowing themselves to look deeper within things rather than just taking surface level.
Yeah, sure, sure. Like nonviolence is the only way, and Jesus proved that. Like when he was betrayed by Judas, he showed that like he didn't need to defend. He didn't need to defend himself. He did not need to do that, right? So that was the same thing.
Led by example.
Yeah, it's the same thing we need to adopt in our lives. That we need to stop jumping. Like we need to stop like attacking others. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And I think that as time goes on, we might get closer and closer to that.
Yeah, it's better to like sacrifice yourself than it is to like jeopardize the whole world, and you know what I mean. Like it doesn't make any sense.
And there's a certain amount of people in the world who are willing to be nonviolent and to even take some to withstand, because the whole idea of non-resistance to evil that Jesus had is very hard for a lot of people to grasp. It's like, oh, shouldn't you fight? But then like there's all these misinterpretations and there's all this pain that's caused in response to other pain. It just creates, and there's this part of Doctor Who, this one episode where he's like, you're not superior to the people who are cruel to you. You're just a bunch of new cruel people.
Sure.
And so we need to, at some point, people just need to break the cycle so that it doesn't continue. So it doesn't fledge a new generation of cruelty.
Right.
And honestly, I think that's kind of the message. I think that we should end on some.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we can end on some. Let's end on
prayer.
some. Yeah.
Okay. Prayer would be great, right?
Yeah. So I have different books I can get psalms from, prayers from. But let me see if I can find. So we can read a little bit of this, and this is very practical. It's from Sadhguru, the book Inner Engineering by Sadhguru. And there's a lot of good practical advice for this for anybody who believes anything. There's a lot of good practical advice in this. Everything you have done in your life so far has been in the pursuit of a single thing. Whether you sought a career, started a business, made money, or built a family, it's always been because you wanted just one simple thing: joy. But somewhere along the line, life got complicated. If you had been born as any other creature on this planet, it would have been very simple. Your needs would have just been physical. A full stomach would have been equivalent to a great day. Take a look at your dog or your cat. The moment their stomach is full, they are quite peaceful. But when you come into this world as a human being, things change. An empty stomach is one problem, hunger. But a full stomach, 100 problems. When our survival is in question, it is a big issue in our lives. But the moment it is taken care of, it doesn't seem to mean anything. Somehow, for a human being, life doesn't seem to end with survival. Life begins with survival. Today, as a generation of people, our survival process is better organized than ever before. You can go to a supermarket and buy everything you need for the entire year. You can do it without even stepping out of your home. Never before in the history of humanity, has such a thing been possible. Things have that even royalty could not afford 100 years ago are accessible to the average citizen. We are the most comfortable generation to have ever lived on this planet. The rub is that we are definitely not the most joyful, or the most loving, or the most peaceful. Why is this so? We have tried our best to fix the outside environment. If we fix it anymore, there will be no planet left. But we are still no happier than our ancestors 1,000 years ago. It is not working. If it is not working, isn't it time to look at what's wrong? How can we continue to do something that has not worked for 1,000 years? How much longer are we going to live with blueprints that are clearly haven't been delivered their promise? It is time for a paradigm shift. Let us ask a simple question. What do we consider to be a state of well-being? Very simply, well-being is just a deep sense of pleasantness within. If your body feels pleasant, we call this health. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it pleasure. If your mind becomes pleasant, we call this peace. If it becomes very pleasant, we call this joy. If your emotions become pleasant, we call this love. If they become pleasant, we if they become very pleasant, we call it compassion. If your life energies become pleasant, we call this bliss. If they become very pleasant, we call this ecstasy. This is all that you are seeking: pleasantness within and without. When pleasantness is within, it is termed peace, joy, happiness. When your surroundings become pleasant, it is branded success. If you're not interested in any of this and want to go to heaven, what are you seeking? Just otherworldly success. So essentially, all human experience is only a question of pleasantness and unpleasantness in various degrees. How many times in your life have you lived an entire day blissfully, without a single moment of anxiety, agitation, irritation, or stress? How many times have you lived in utter and absolute pleasantness for 24 hours? When was the last time it happened to you? The amazing thing is that for most people on this planet, not a single day has happened exactly the way they want it. Of course, uh, there is no one who has not experienced joy, peace, even bliss, but is always fleeting. They are unable to sustain it. They manage to get there, but it keeps collapsing. And nothing earth-shattering needs to happen for it to collapse. The simplest things throw people off balance, out of kilter. It is like this. You go today and someone tells you that you are the most beautiful person in the world. You're floating on cloud nine. But then you come home and folks at home tell you you are really who you are really, and everything collapses. Sounds familiar? Why do you need to be pleasant with why do you need to be pleasant within? The answer is self-evident. When you are in a pleasant inner state, you are naturally pleasant to everyone and everything around you. Right. No scripture or philosophy is needed to instruct you to be good to others. It is a natural outcome when you are feeling good within yourself. Inner pleasantness is a surefire insurance for the making of a peaceful society and joyful world. Besides, your success in the world depends essentially on the well-being that you harness and the prowess of your body and mind. So, in order to achieve success, pleasantness has to be a fundamental quality within yourself. So basically, he's talking about how if we can make ourselves pleasant, if we can create a sense of inner peace, um, then the world itself will have less, pain, less affliction from us ourselves. So he's talking about creating peace within ourselves will affect peace in the external world. And that our responsibility is to create the peace within, the pleasantness within, the truth within, accepting the light and compassion within, and relinquishing fear and relinquishing even violent thought towards or hating other people. And then if everyone did that within, the external world would change. Honestly, pretty quickly if enough people did it. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing to end on. But at any rate, thank you everybody for watching, and I hope this was interesting. Questions, comments, concerns, shoot them down in the comment section below. Feel free to share this video wherever you like, and
please drop us some questions or like what your
in the questions. Put it in the comment section below. Put some questions, and create a state of inner peace, and you will have affected the world in a positive way. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and hope all of you have a wonderful day.